so he went to the coach and said, I don't want to, he's young, he's under 18. All those other kids are like 19, 20, 21 and stuff. Well, he's 18, so he can go play in the U18. And so he went and played at Junior Stampede in Sioux Falls, and he was on the first line there, him and another guy. So they got a lot more aggressive, a lot more confident. And the coach even said he looks a much different player from when he tried out to now, the confidence and different stuff. And so the game that I was there, he played well. He was up, staying in front. Didn't look like he was overmatched. He said Matt said the second game on Saturday. I wasn't there. I was in Pier, but he said he didn't get out much on the line because there was a lot of penalties. The ref was terrible calling, just ticky tack everything, and so he's not going to be on the penalty kill or the power play line. So
it's 8:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody. We have an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on commission agenda for an item not listed. Is there anybody that would like? Hearing none, we'll move on. Approval of the agenda. Any additions or corrections? No additions, corrections. Approved as read. Consent agenda items. Approval of minutes. Approval of travel and education requests. Approval of personal action notices. And approval of human services report.
move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Miller. Aye. Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move on to routine business. Approval of claims.
So move.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion here? Call the roll, please.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Miller. Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move on to department head reports. Mike, would you like to start?
Good morning. I don't have a whole lot to report. I was on the radio last Thursday for the 9 o'clock. They have a veterans program on 1430, and I gave a little brief rundown of some of the benefits that we help provide in our office. Other than that, I guess legislation is going to be starting up. I'm still kind of waiting to see what all they take pushing that one. I do know the cemetery is one of the issues that they're looking at on this side of the state, but those numbers need to be worked out. And so, otherwise, our calls have been up some. We're about have about 130, and normally we're about 100, 110. So that we've been seeing that. Make a few more calls out. Had 120. We had about 40 veterans come in and 30 on the welfare side. So the welfare side is kind of down a little bit on that side, but the veteran side, we have quite a few more stopping in, which is a good thing.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you. Bob.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here because of the Atlanta, Georgia airport can't apparently keep power on. So they sent me to Denver and sent me back home from Denver. So the December 6th, we had an exercise up at Buffalo Ridge 2 up on the Dual County line. That went well. People from White Fire Department, White Ambulance, and the Toronto Fire Department came down for that exercise. December 7th, I went to Mitchell for a blizzard meeting, and they said, yes, there'll probably be blizzards in South Dakota. That's what I got out of that meeting. December 11 and 12, Richard went over to Pierre and took a class called Recovery, the Local Government Role, which was a good training session. December 12 to 15, I was in a Gas Pipeline Advisory Committee meeting. December 13th, the Joint Jurisdiction Area Joint Committee between the City of Brookings and the county and county citizens held a meeting. Richard attended that along with Commissioner Pierce, and our zoning board member was Darrell Nelson, appointed to that or on that board. December 14th, we had a planning commission work session scheduled, but we had some weather system came in from the north, and since we got zoning board members throughout the whole county, we went ahead and canceled that, and we did get a reply back from the guy that lives in Hendricks that it was probably a good thing that we canceled that work session because it was getting pretty bad up in that area. December 17th through 22, I was supposed to have been in training. Obviously, I'm here. And I did contact the tower company. Last meeting, we was talking about the northern repeater tower. And he had already checked of dual water. He was up there looking for tower sites, and he had already checked of dual brook water, and they don't lease tower sites. So, but he's still actively searching for that. He's working with my office. Once he finds a location, he'll have to go through a conditional use permit process to get the tower set up. And I guess the last thing, since we did have to cancel that meeting on December 14th, or we did cancel the meeting on December 14th, we are looking at possibly amending our bylaws for the Planning Commission on when should we put some guidelines in the Planning Commission bylaws on when should we call a zoning meeting when we get inclement weather coming in. You know, if we expect the blizzard to be hitting around 8 o'clock at night, is there any reason to have a zoning meeting where we're gonna get our people here in Brookings and where they can't get back home and things like that? So that's just something that'll have to come. Obviously, to amend our bylaws, we'll have to bring them back to the county commission, but just to let you know, we are going to be looking at that pretty heavily. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Bob?
Thank you.
Chris?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just some information for you. Last year when we ended after all of our market changes, we addressed all of the issues and areas that we needed adjustment last year, and we ended at 90.4% as a level of assessment of all sales countywide. So now rolling forward this year, and my starting point as opposed to where I ended last year, my starting point is 85.74, which means countywide our market has increased 4.66% this last year. So a very strong year in sales for our office. I think, Ryan, typically you see 2 to 3% annually. It's pretty strong this year. I was actually shocked after my audit, when we got all of our sales finalized, to look at where my starting point is versus where I ended in. That's pretty strong. With that, our office, we're all wrapped up, other than a couple of building permits, people that are still straggling in. Their times have expired. You know, when we go out and leave tags and send them letters, if we don't get any response from them for whatever reason, you know, we finalize, but we always will get stragglers, and we'll continue to get those in January. Just found my letter. Can you still come and look? And we do. They're not shut out. So, but for the most part, we're done with building permits. Some data entry still going on, but with that, I've started strong into my market studies. And again, now I have to address that 4.66% increase and find the areas that need adjustment, whether up or down. Working through that, I've got a lot of areas that are going up. It's pretty consistent across the board. I do have a couple of areas that I've taken down, Lake Hendricks being one of them. That is going to be going down for 2018 assessment notices. They were a little bit strong last year, but I let them ride this year. The sales that we had come through are indicating that we're high now, so they're going to be decreasing, which is a first for a lake. With that, I have to have all of my intentions done and put together and summarized, and all the reporting, which you'll get a copy of. That's due to Department of Revenue by January 1, so I got to finish all of my intentions and studies and compile all of that data and submit it. Assessment notices, again, we have to have those postmarked by March 1st. I think we're going to be set to have those out mid-February easily again. I don't see any hiccups with that. March 15th then is the last day to appeal to the local board if somebody doesn't agree with their assessment. And the local board shall meet the third Monday of March, which is March 19th, and they'll be in session for 5 days. After that, the county board, the last day to appeal to the county board will be April 3rd, which is the second Tuesday in April. And the county board is to remain in session no longer than 3 weeks. So those are just some dates for you guys to put ahead. And Stacy, I'll make sure I get them to you as well. But that's pretty much where we're at and what we're doing. So,
Any questions?
I
Thank you.
actually,
Oh,
I
go
actually have a question.
Mr. Pierce?
When you started out talking, you said, gave a figure of 90%.
90.4%.
And
Yep.
what does that figure reflect?
What that figure represents is what does every property in the county sell for on a median, and where am I at on a median?
And so when we're looking at productivity for farmland, and I think the number that you told us previously is that we're at about 45%
Yep,
of fair market
that
value.
hasn't changed. I haven't really pulled the ag sales to see where we're at this year. Our ag land did go up for 2018. I've got those numbers already. They've been plugged into my system. Revenue gave me those from SDSU. Last year we went down because we were at 1906, I think, and then we went down to like 1903 on crop soils. It equated to about $100 of value on a quarter of land. You went down. Now this year we're going up to like 1936 or something. It's like a $300 increase for crop soils. I think it was about an 8 or 9% increase, and the grass is going up about 5 to 6. So we are at full productivity. So now we are strictly in the ebbs and tides of acres planted, acres harvested, the yields, and those commodity prices. I was actually kind of shocked when I got the numbers that they went up, because I thought with the commodity prices staying low, we'll see that downturn. But the 8-year Olympic average, the yields increased so drastically, it took it right back up. So, but we're in that current now. My office is basically completely out of it, other than recording. I mean, we're no longer catching up. We're where we're supposed to be. I've got some reports. I think there's only about 2 or 3 counties left in the state now that have 1, maybe 2 more years to go before they're finally at full productivity.
So the 90.4 relates to real estate
Non-ag.
that is not
Non-ag, yep.
Thank
Ag, we're considered to be at 100% all the time because we're at the max capacity.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Good morning.
Morning.
To give you an update on our office, yesterday we had our tax certificate auction, and we had 2 investors come, and they purchased $274,000 in back taxes. So that's pretty consistent to what we've had in the past. Only we've had more investors this year. We were down in investors. We did get our levies approved, and we're working on getting the tax notices to qualified pre-sort so they can print them and get them out. They should go out the very first part of January, so that is in the process. And we did get another bill from the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners for a clerk payment. We've made all 4 of our clerk payments. For 2017, it was $27,723. And we got another bill for $2,600 because the claims across the state are higher, so we have to kick in on that. So we have a $2,613 more dollars. So that claim will be paid out of the 17 budget in January. So I guess we're not alone with, defense for adults and any court expense going up. So that is where we're at there. And if you go by our office, we did get some new art on our walls. There's 4 new pictures on the walls, and they are from the high school, from Mr. Livingston. John Livingston is their instructor, and we reached out to him. We've had the ones from the Boys and Girls Club for a number of years, and he brought over 4 different pictures, and they're very nice to look at if you want to stop in. And we still have a couple from Boys and Girls Club, but he will be trading those out. They also have art up at the hospital and also at the administration building for the schools. So they have a way of showing their art. So I think our customers will appreciate looking at that. And in your packet, you also received the finance officer's report. And we have the be it noted items of auditor's account with the treasurer, the payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditure report, the register of deeds statements, and also we have this time the investment report as of November 30th of 2017. So if you have any questions on that, but it gives all the interest rates of the CDs, the money markets, and also how all of the funds, all of our monies are divided between the banks. So that was in your report. And also a credit card report that went back from 2015 and 16, and then up until December 1st of 17. So it kind of gives you an idea of how the credit cards have increased, and so I think everything's going well there. And with the finance officer's report, the cash balance, general funds surplus analysis is down a little bit from what it was in previous years. We just did the quarterly transfers the end of November, so that is the big reason it's down, but it is down a little bit from what it was other years, but we're still in good shape. Any questions you have on any of this?
Not on this. Any luck with the kiosk for the license plate?
Haven't heard any more. Haven't heard anything at all, so okay. I'll keep you updated with that, so thanks.
Marty?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just wanted to bring to your attention a letter to the editor that I put on your desk that was in the paper last week. And of course, I went over to the Presbyterian Church right away to find out what this was about. And this is evidently, this is according to the office manager, this was an incident that happened in the 90s. And evidently there was a group talking about the massacre, or no, I shouldn't say massacre, but the shooting in Texas, and evidently that spurred someone remembering this incident in the 90s, and she wrote that 3-sentence paragraph. And I really don't know what the inmate did other than maybe bang the door when they came in and drew attention. I don't know what it was about, but I figured I'd fill you in because I've already been asked about it. And I don't know if any of you have been asked about it. So anybody that's watching our jail expansion, anything that, of course, is negative, they're going to bring that up. So I'm just making it aware so that you can respond to someone if they ask what that is about. So, and they have a new pastor over there, but I didn't catch her. I did talk to the office person previously also, and she did tell me that she had filled in the new pastor with the signs and the surveillance cameras that are over in the 21 parking lot, which she thought was that was good because feel safer. You know, and I talked to some individuals at the 21 building too, and they thought that was nice that the cameras are up that their cars feel a little safer over there. So I think that was probably a good deal. We just finished up the last tailgating with football, just prior to, of course, them going to in their last game and stuff in Brookings, and sent a bill off to athletics up at SDSU. So we'll get reimbursed just a little bit under $10,000 for staff. So so that covers all our expenses and a little bit more. So it should cover insurance and what they take out and everything. But it'd be a check a little under $10,000 for that. In the jail, it's I don't know how long this will last. Terry and me were just talking about this prior, that we're down to 28 inmates right now, and a lot of it has to do with sentencing. Finally, not finally, but a lot of it has to do with sentencing and the ones that have completed their sentence and so forth. So we'll see how long that lasts with that. Otherwise, we've been in the 30s and the 40s a lot of the time. So we brought back the individual from Falk County yesterday. Even with our numbers down, this just happened with our numbers down. Otherwise, it's been up there. We still weren't able to hold him because of classification, but this individual will be sentenced this afternoon, and he'll be transported to another location. If you notice, like 24/7 is up. 142 participants right now. There's 51 that come in twice a day, so 102 come in twice a day. And if you really want to look at this, you have Scram, 19 on Scram. I have 14 on Drug Patch. I have 51 on UAs. And so these individuals are coming in so far to blow over 13,000 times to date, just to blow. And a total of 16,000 visits to the jail a year. So that gate has clanged 16,000 times once, but they got to leave. So actually you're 32,000. So you look at the scope of this and how many individuals come and go right now at a detention center, and I've had no incidences to my knowledge of any traffic problems, or I think most people don't even know that I have that many come back and forth. So I think just something to think about. It's a busy with these coming and going, but it's not creating a problem. Also, over the weekend, we had two mental holds at the hospital. One needed a guard and one didn't. So my staff, and these came from the county. It was my deputies. Were called to situations where they felt the person needed to go into protective custody. They came to the hospital. Both of them stayed at the hospital in a room, and both of them were later cleared, but we provided 19 hours of guarding for these individuals, and then they were cleared, and they weren't sent, which, is sometimes a good thing too. Hopefully we don't send everybody to Yankton, because we've had 50 committals already to date. In 2016, we had 37 committals, and in 2015, we had 27 committals. So, and whatever we can do to keep doing things to help these individuals, and we don't have to send to Yankton is good too. Now, we've had 2 weeks of East Central Behavioral Health coming in on Thursdays and from 8 till noon. On the 7th, we had 9 inmates that visited with the counselor. 4 of them were already inmates that had been seeing the counselor once a week from East Central Behavioral Health, but we had 5 new inmates that day. So there was a total of 9 that saw the counselor on the 7th. On the 14th, there was 6 visits, 3 regular and 3 new. So in 2 weeks, we've had 8 from the jail that visited with the counselor. That was the first time they visited with the counselor. So I think that's a start in the right direction also, hopefully. So also on December 6th, Bart and myself met with Brookings Empowerment over at the library, and they had a webinar on mental illness, on CIT, the CIT program, Mental Illness Intervention Techniques, which about 7 or 8 of my staff have went to the 40-hour school and are CIT trained. And there was a individual represented from the hospital. There was an individual representing the task force, the mental health task force, and then some members of the empowerment. And what we were talking about, or what they were talking about, was kind of having a CIT response type team, the possibility of that in Brookings, and pulling our resources together to help more in the direction of mental illness. So I think it was a good little group discussion. So, and then on December 7th, Bart and myself met with the state's attorney, Abby Howard, and acting Chief Erickson and Chief Tim Heaton, and hospital, and talking about procedures with commitments and so forth, and guarding and things like that. There's always been a little confusion with who's going to guard at the hospital, and basically it is, if the city police brings someone in, they should be the guard, and if my office brings someone in, my office should be the guard, and so there's a little discussion there, and then a little on procedural too. Is that probably the state's attorney's office has spoiled my office on some of the paperwork, and then my office has spoiled other agencies on paperwork and so forth. And so we discussed too that there's no reason why when the city police bring someone up to the hospital is that they need to do the paperwork, and if Tim Heaton brings somebody up, that they can't do the type of paperwork, and that always have to involve the state's attorney's office or my office. Statute says I transport, but it doesn't say that the sheriff's office has to do all the paperwork. So we're working out some of those, and the state's attorney has developed some procedural changes and things like that. So also budget. When you look at my sheriff's or the detention budget. To date, we should be at 91. I should have spent 91% of my budget, and overall right now it's at 88. So I'm within budget. It's just I have some line items that are over, and I'll work with Vicki, especially with medical services. I only budgeted $25,000, and we spent $47,000 already, so I'm $22,000 in that line. But my overall budget is good. But there's still some things that need to come out of my other lines. So I'll work with Vicki on what I need there. And also on the 24/7 budget, a lot of that is supplies and testing. But that money has come back in. So, the money's there to supplement that budget. So we should be okay there. So.
Marty, does the GPS tracking, I see there's a bill for that. Does that come back?
Pardon?
The GPS tracking?
Yes, that
see,
comes
there's
back.
A bill in there for that. That comes back from the individual?
Yes. Yep. The only time it doesn't, that if it's someone that can't afford it, but we have them out because of a medical issue or something like that, it's still a lot cheaper to pay it than it is to. But otherwise, yes, that comes back. So if you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you. Dick, could we just wait a little bit? It's 9 o'clock and we have a second reading, so. Move on to scheduled agenda items, 9 o'clock, second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 2017-05 and an ordinance authorizing rezoning of South Dakota soybean processors tract 3B in the northwest quarter of section 24, township 110 north, range 51 west of the 5th by meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota, Volga Township, from an agricultural district to a commercial industrial district. This is second reading. Public hearing. I'd open the public hearing. Is there any proponents that would like to speak to this? Please just state your name and make sure the mic's on there.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Harstead, the VP of Operations and General Manager at Prairie Aquatech, and I would like to speak in favor of this change and update you guys on what we're planning to do with the change. Prairie Aquatech is planning to purchase this property from South Dakota soybean processors. We work with them, and they're a partner or an investor in our company, and we're planning to build a protein production facility on that site using soybean meal and converting that into a high-protein feed ingredient that we're primarily targeting aquaculture with. So the construction progress is moving along. We're looking for this rezoning change. Our funding, we completed the funding raise, and that call came in, was due yesterday, so I haven't heard if everybody that indicated they were going to participate, but we're very close on closing that. We've got our lending institutions lined up as well. So our plan is to continue the detailed engineering through the winter months and then break ground as soon as frost comes out of the ground in the spring, with the construction to take approximately 1 year. So we hope to have this facility up and online in early of 2019. This facility, it's a technology that was developed by 2 professors at South Dakota State University, Dr. Mike Brown in Wildlife and Fisheries Department, and Dr. Bill Gibbons in the Microbiology Department. And then Prairie Aquatech is the link to take that technology and get it commercialized. We'll be employing approximately 35 full-time positions at that job, and they'll be well-paying jobs. So we are excited to get this project moving along, and just wanted to update you guys on what we're planning to do with this rezoning change.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other proponents? Is there any other proponents? Hearing none, is there any opponents? Is there any opponents? Okay, I close the public hearing and look for action to approve ordinance number 2017-05, an ordinance authorizing rezoning of South Dakota soybean processors tract 3B in the northwest quarter of section 24, township 110 north, range 51 west of the 5th prime meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota, Volga Township, from an agricultural district to a commercial industrial district.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
I just would like to say that this came in front of County Planning and Zoning. It passed unanimously. It looks like a great opportunity for Brookings County.
Good. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Okay, Dick, would you like to come up? We got about 12 minutes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Basically, this week we've been preparing for winter weather to arrive on Thursday. If it comes, we'll be ready. We've been finishing up some year-end tasks and getting ready to close out 2017 and transition into 2018. Part of this process are things we do every year, and for example, Jeff has been starting to upgrade and review weight restriction maps that we send to the DOT and the Highway Patrol and everything, and that won't go into effect obviously till later in March. However, it's part of the process we go through. We also are reaching close to our deadline for January 2nd for our big grant applications for the DOT. The guys have been clearing brush from the road right away. We've also been having crew members go out and work on improving our water drainage near our culverts and structures and whatever within the state, county. And so also I handed out before the meeting just a summary, and we've got time at later dates or whatever to go over this in more detail, and possibly even later in today's meeting. But this was a summary that had been asked for as far as our review of our structures less than 20 feet. And these are the ones that just possibly had some comments that were in line to kind of keep myself and the board informed of how they sit right now. The back of the back page is just kind of a replacement consideration priority. If you notice, the top two numbers on there are the ones we will be doing in 2018. So basically what we did, and met with Colin from Banner, and he singled out and showed like the ones that are planned for replacement. They also, if it says like no replacement planned at this time, does not necessarily mean that we won't be addressing that at some future date. It just means that now we have the ability to kind of plan or insert smaller structures into our replacement schedule in a fashion that not only is it, I think, good planning and fiscally responsible, but it also will be a way that we'll be aware of what, not only are we addressing the big ones countywide, but there's also a need for smaller structures, and that will come. After the two that are replaced in 2018, we have pretty much completed the replacement of the ones that originally were bridge-looking structures, and we replaced them with box culverts. We have also replaced the structures that were in desperate need of replacement. And so now we're in a much better situation as we start planning in 2018, May, April, whenever we get into the strategic planning and the beginning of the budget process. We can look at the total picture and we can insert one or more than one, whatever we feel would be a good fit for us as a move forward in staying abreast of our smaller and larger structures. Also, will include, if any of this takes, develops as we want to replace, we'll put it on the 5-year plan. Even though it isn't DOT related, it will give you as a board a understanding of what projects we'll be doing. So I think I'll leave it at that. And also, if later on you have further questions or more detailed questions, we can answer them then. But I apologize for not getting it out ahead of time. And I also have on the copy, I brought along a bridge map that isn't huge, but it shows where all these are located. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, I guess. Leanne?
I just had a question since we're talking about this. Now, when you look at the short structures report that came from Banner, and there are many structures where replacement's not needed, posting's not needed, but there's some maintenance things that need to be done. You know, a wing wall needs to be fixed or whatever. How do we handle that?
We do as much as we can by ourselves, and the rest of it, if it's needing a contractor or whatever, we would schedule that or make arrangements to do that, and that would be out of our repair and maintenance line item in our budget. Most cases, some of these smaller ones, we did like put some sheet piling in or shored up a wing wall, those types of things. If you also notice on, you brought up a good point, as far as needing repairs, or if we replaced, like the one on 38 this last summer was large enough that actually qualifies as a structure now. So we'll be moving that over. Another thing that is kind of interesting is once these boxes are replaced, they only have to be inspected on a 4-year cycle, not a 2-year cycle. So there again, that will evolve as a different approach to how we'll be inspecting.
So on that report, I mean, there were quite a few where there were some maintenance-related things. Would you anticipate that those are things that, when will we have that list done? That's what my question is. How's our
Weather
process?
permitting, but we always try to get it done in the calendar year or the span before the next inspection. It kind of depends upon what it does. Like for the bigger structures, all of that's been done that we could do. And also when we hired Holloway Construction to fix the bridge on 6, the major repair, that's done also. And then we document that so that should anything present itself in the future, they're aware of the date we did it, who did it, and what was done.
So all of those recommended maintenance and repair things we would have done during this 2-year period before the next short span report comes out? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And do any of those, do the short structures qualify for any of the big program restoration monies?
No, and that's where the strategy will come in the budget process, because we have to focus that those are always going to be our responsibility 100%.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these have load limits on them?
No,
These are all,
they've all been
passive
replaced.
loads.
Yep.
So the ones that have load limits are taken care of now. We're doing this.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's a good, we're making headway. Any other questions?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple minutes here. Move down to regular business. Action to approve resolution number 17-57, a plat of lots 2 and 5 of Dakota Shores second subdivision, all being located in government lots 4 and 5, section 15, township 112 north, range 47 west of the 5th prime meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Bob?
This was heard at our regularly scheduled December zoning meeting and approved with a unanimous vote and sent to this board with a recommendation of approval.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Yes.
Miller, Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter B, action to approve resolution number 17-58, a plat of block 1, wagon wheel addition being located in lot 1, DeBoer addition in the southwest quarter of section 8, township 111 north, range 51 west of the 5th prime meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota.
Second.
A motion, a second in the background here.
Once again, this one was heard in our December zoning meeting, approved by the zoning board and sent to this board with a recommendation of approval.
The question, does that, on this one, does it affect the ingress, egress of that, I don't know if there's that road there that comes in.
There are easements on there to allow people to go around to the back
Okay,
residences.
Ryan, you talking about the entrance?
Well, both, I guess, as you go in, and then this kind of comes out. I know there's cabins and stuff to the north, isn't there? And there's properties to the north.
Correct.
Would this have an issue of blocking access to those or anything like that?
No, you can see on the map they've got an access easement. The road easement up there on my right, your left.
Okay, so that's the road easements. They have access to get to theirs.
In the actual driveway going in there is a section line, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Miller. Aye. Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
It is 9:15. We have a supplemental budget hearing from Fund 248, 24/7 Program Fund. I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have any proponents that would like to speak to this item? Do we have any proponents that would like to speak? Hearing none, opponents. Any opponents would like to speak? Hearing none, I'd like to close the public hearing. Look for action to approve resolution number 17-53, a supplemental budget resolution for Fund 248.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Miller. Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter C on the regular business. Action approve agreement number 17-89, a prisoner housing agreement between Brookings County and Falk County, South Dakota.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. In discussion.
Well, even though we're not using this right now, it's my understanding we have a cheaper rate when we have an agreement with a facility. So if we need them again, we will have this set rate.
What was the rate per day, Marty?
85.
85. Okay. No further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter D, action approve agreement number 17-90, an agreement for general law enforcement services between Brookings County and the city of Elkton.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
These are just our regular agreements that we have every year with our outlying cities.
The contracts, I have a stipulation in it that they renew automatically unless I raise their rate and I have to give them in writing. And when we had our last audit, the state said that I should probably just get them updated.
Every
So now I'm going to come every year and probably just stay up because councils change and it'll be just cleaner.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter E, action approve agreement number 17-91, an agreement for general law enforcement services between Brookings County and the city of Volga.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Marty, does any of these increased hours, is Volga increase their hours or?
No, nobody's, well, I haven't got a word back because they were talking about possibly increasing their hours. They're the only contract I haven't got back.
Okay.
But the city of Waga, I did increase their payment, and the city of Elkton, I increased their payment just to get them with the other, they were slightly under the other two communities, so now they're all about the same.
Okay.
They get a good deal. I mean, they really do. It's about $38 an hour, and for police services, and they get a police car, uniform, equipment, gas,
There's a twofold deal. With the 4 communities, it pays for 2.5 hours.
Okay.
About 190,000 between the 4 that they pay for police protection.
Call the roll, please.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
It's 9:20, supplemental budget hearing. Fund 201, Road and Bridge Fund, and Fund 229, Domestic Abuse Fund. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there any proponents? Speak. Is there any proponents that would like to speak? Hearing none, opponents. Is there any opponents that would like to speak? Hearing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and look for action to approve resolution number 17-54, a supplemental budget resolution for funds 201 and 229.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, go back to letter F under regular business. Action approve agreement number 17-92, an agreement for general law enforcement services between Brookings County and the City of White.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter G, action to approve agreement number 17-93, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter H, action to approve agreement number 17-94, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter I, action to approve agreement number 17-95, a memorandum of understanding between SDSU Extension and Brookings County, South Dakota.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion here? This is basically a wage agreement, correct? On
It's her whole, yeah, basically.
our share. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter J, action to approve a delinquent tax payment agreement in the amount of $4,288.91.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any background information here, Vicki?
Yeah, this is a basic agreement, but we are dealing with an elderly person that we cannot take tax deed to the property, and the bank is helping this individual get caught up on the taxes. And as you'll see, this is a second agreement. The first agreement, we got the 12 and 13 taxes paid, so we are making progress. It's slow, but we are making progress, and I just think it's a win for both of us to get some money in this way, and because we can't take tax deed to the property and he can still stay in his home. So I would recommend approval on this.
Any questions? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Letter K, action to approve the bylaws of the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center Advisory Board.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and second. Discussion?
Well, just some background on this. We had the Outdoor Adventure Center put together a subcommittee composed of the sheriff, myself, and advisory board member Tim Reed, and also with the help of Stacy, we put together close to this document, worked on it a few times, and then presented it to the advisory board and went through the process there, made a few small changes, but the advisory board at our last meeting approved these, and with the understanding of sending it to us for final approval. In these, we're not, bylaws, they are changeable. We have the ability to change these. It's not a huge undertaking to make a change, and so this is a good start. We're pretty solid, I think, with the makeup and the stuff. We used a lot of information from other entities that have similar types of bylaws and how they arranged them, and so I think it came out pretty good. And if we need to make some changes, we will do so down the road to adjust.
Commissioner Pierce?
I want to commend you because writing bylaws is not fun, and these are well done. I did have a comment to make only on the mission statement, because I think our mission statement should be a little more, should be wider than just shooting activities. And what we talked about when we looked at purchasing the OAC facility is that we would have an opportunity for other educational recreational programs for our county residents. And I'm wondering if you would consider adding some verbiage to the mission statement on that line that says, it's the third line from the bottom of the mission statement, which says 4-H programming, archery, and shooting activities, and to maintain programs of archery and shooting activities. And then to insert in there, and other educational and recreational programs that reflect the purpose of the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center in the interest of its members and the 4-H organization. If that would be something that you would consider, because I do think hopefully in the future we'll be looking at some programming maybe that's not directly related to shooting, that may be more outdoor adventure related.
Because of our location, obviously next to the city nature park, certainly has some potential for collaboration with the city for those programming too and stuff. So I don't know. It certainly doesn't hurt having that in there, I don't think, by any means. So
Is that something you want to take back to the board for their input?
I really don't think we have to. It came to us for final approval and any changes that need to be made. So,
and I don't think this is,
that isn't
we're not
substantive.
We're not making a huge change here, board makeup or terms or anything like that. So I think we'd be fine making the change to it and add to it.
Then I would make a motion
to them, and, after it's done.
I'd make a motion to amend so that that part after the semicolon where it says and to maintain programs of archery and shooting activities, to add in the words and other educational and recreational programs, and then leave the rest of the sentence the way it is.
I'd second that.
You have a motion and a second for amendment. To add Leanne's suggestion there, we call the roll, please.
Pierce?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Amendment carried.
Back to original action, approve the bylaws of the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center and Advisory Board. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please, on those.
As amended.
As amended.
Miller?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Main motion carried.
Okay, we have 1 minute here for our 9:30 second reading. So. It is 9:30. Good. Schedule Agenda D, second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 2017-02, an ordinance providing for the amendment of ordinance number 2015-03. Brookings County Ordinance number 2017-2, an ordinance providing for the amendment of ordinance 2015-03. Whereas Brookings County previously adopted ordinance 2015-03, which readopted the 1997 revised zoning ordinance in accordance with chapters 11 through 2. Whereas the Brookings County, South Dakota Board of County Commissioners deems it necessary for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, and the general welfare of the county to amend ordinance 2015-03 by repealing the following articles. Article 50, County Zoning Commission Appeals Variance excuse me, and conditional uses. Article 6, duties of county zoning officer, Board of County Commissioners, and courts on matters of appeal. Article 7, enforcement. Article 8, schedule of fees, charges, and expenses. Article 10, amendments and replacing said articles with Article 6, a copy of which is attached hereto, Administration Chapter 601, General Chapter 602, Zoning Official Chapter 603, Planning and Zoning Commission Chapter 604, Board of Adjustment Chapter 605, Procedures for Conditional Uses, Variances, and Zoning Amendments, and Chapter 606, Repeal of Conflicting Ordinances. Therefore, be it ordained by Brookings County, South Dakota, the ordinance 2015-03 is hereby amended by repealing the following articles. Article 50, County Zoning Commission Appeals, Variance, and Conditional Uses. Article 6, duties of County Zoning Officer, Board of County Commissioners, and courts on matters of appeal. Article 7, enforcement. Article 8, schedule of fees, charges, and expenses. Article 10, amendments and replacing said articles with Article 6, a copy which is attached hereto, Administration Chapter 601, General Chapter 602, Zoning Official Chapter 603, Planning Zoning Commission Chapter 604, Board of Adjustment Chapter 605, Procedures for Conditional Uses, Variances, and Zoning Amendments, and Chapter 606, Repeal of Conflicting Ordinances, adopted this 19th day of December 2017. I'd like to open the public hearing, and if there's any proponents that would like to speak to this.
My name is Catherine Carter. I'm a Brookings County resident, and I both support and oppose. But I'll just, in this section, I'll just address in what sense I support it. The amendments proposed with regard to transferability is what I support on this. I think this amendment is limited in scope by design. Only certain kinds of conditional use permits would be questioned in terms of how transferable they are, and that would be specified ahead of time. And the reason for that, I believe, is that for certain kinds of conditional uses, the qualifications and history of the operator, the applicant for the conditional use, are of importance to the county, to the residents of the county, to landowners as well. And this is because certain kinds of conditional uses have a great potential for affecting the safety and security of the citizens as well as their property. In addition, there's a great potential for some conditional uses to affect the quality of the resources that are a part of every citizen's right in the county. This has to do with environmental concerns, water quality, and things of that nature. And so certain conditional uses should require examination by the board, either the Board of Adjustment or Planning Zoning Commission, in terms of the qualifications and history of the proposed owner. Now, in some cases, as it stands now, a conditional use can simply be transferred with a letter of agreement signed by the new proposed owner. This is simply a deficiency of the way things stand and would be addressed by the amendment as proposed. The other thing I support is the increase in the notification times for conditional uses and variances and other things for which a public hearing is held from the standard 10 days in most cases to the 14 days. This gives citizens a little bit more time, especially if they're out of town, for example, and don't get the mail right away, to be aware of that a hearing is even being held and to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents that would like to speak?
Royce Emmerich, a long-term resident of Brookings County. In my prior dealings with the commission and its elected members, I've always been impressed with the collective wisdom displayed relative to sticky issues. These issues concerning revisions in the ordinances are not the most complex with which you have dealt, but important nevertheless. These issues and revisions have been previously discussed, and compromises have been made to reach the current ordinance revisions. The concerns of your larger number of constituents have been compromised in an attempt to appease those seeking conditional use permits, especially CAFO developers, hoping to sell permitted sites either immediately or in the future. Rules are only as good as the reputation of those who are expected to follow them. It's only reasonable that future owners and their plans for the sites should be examined and subjected to the same scrutiny as the original CUP applicants. The revisions are currently presented to provide for a determination by planning and zoning as to whether or not a CUP should be automatically transferable. That appears to be enough of a protection for the simpler CUPs that pose the least threat to the general welfare of the community. I urge you to adhere to the revision that you have so diligently developed. There is one minor item that I would like to draw to your attention. Could you possibly bring up page 13 on the screen? Is that possible? Item number 10. Item number 10 reads, a conditional use permit shall not be automatically transferable as a matter of right. At the time of the hearing of the issuance of the conditional use permit, the Board of Adjustment shall indicate in its findings of fact whether the permit shall be transferable. If the permit is determined to be automatically transferable, the permit shall be transferable subject to the new permittee signing a letter agreeing to the same terms as set forth in the original conditional use permit. The next sentence is the problem that I have difficulty with. It says, if the permit is not determined to be not automatically transferable. Seems to me that there are too many knots in that.
There are too many knots. The first knot should not be there.
Okay, I will not go further with that. Thank you for your attention.
And I'm going to, at the appropriate time, make a motion to fix that. And that would be grammatical. It wouldn't make us need another hearing. Yeah.
Is there any other proponents that'd like to speak? Is there any other proponents that'd like to speak? Hearing none. Oh, any opponents that would like to come forward and speak?
My name is Catherine Carter. I'm a resident of Brookings County, and I oppose certain measures of the revised ordinance. First of all, I want to just mention again that the revision would take away the right of appeal on the county level and from a decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission to the Board of Adjustment. This is an important right, rarely used, and the reason it's important is that a decision of the Board of Adjustment can only be appealed to the courts, okay? So taking away the right of appeal from the Planning and Zoning Commission decision to the Board of Adjustment eliminates that ability. Why is that important? Because the appeal of a Board of Adjustment decision is only granted to the courts on the basis of the writ of certiorari. The writ of certiorari only allows appeals based on procedural deficits, all right? So there is only the chance to appeal if the board makes some kind of error in the way they reach their decision. There's no appeal on the basis of whether the facts were fully presented and understood and whether the judgment of the board was rendered on the basis of an understanding of all the evidence. So when you take away this right, then it removes the ability of citizens of the county to appeal and ask for reconsideration based on new evidence, for example. So that's why this is an important and negative change in the ordinance. Another consideration I just want to mention briefly is that the ordinance does not specify that in reaching a decision about whether to grant a conditional use permit, the property values of adjoining landowners will be considered. Now, it seems logical that in a decision of this nature, they will be considered. And in fact, in a zoning ordinance, consideration for property values, if for no other reason than to maintain the tax base, is kind of assumed. But in fact, the Planning and Zoning Commission has, on occasion, declined to consider property values, specifically because apparently of a misunderstanding of whether they even could do that. And so this is why it's important to mention property values in the ordinance so that the board is directed to consider property values when they examine a conditional use permit. Thank you.
Is there any other opponents that would like to speak? Is there any other opponents that would like to speak? Hearing none, I'd like to close the public hearing and look for action to approve ordinance number 2017-02, an ordinance providing for the amendment of ordinance number 2015-03.
I would move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would like to make a motion to amend on page 13, item 10, the last sentence of that paragraph, which should read, if the permit is determined not to be automatically transferable. That's how that should read.
I'll second that amendment.
I have a motion and a second to amend item 10 to read, a conditional use permit shall not be automatic transfer as a matter of right. At the time of the hearing on the issuance of the conditional use permit, the Board of Adjustment shall indicate in its findings of fact whether the permit shall be transferable. If the permit is determined to be automatically transferable, the permit shall be transferable subject to the new permittee signing a letter of agreement in the same terms as set forth in the original conditional use permit. If the permit is determined to be not automatically transferable, a potential subsequent permittee must apply to the Board of Adjustment for authority to have the permit transferred.
Mr. Chair, I think you misspoke there. If I could read that one
Which
more time.
one?
If the permit is determined not to be automatically transferable.
Sorry.
Okay.
The last sentence, if the permit is determined not to be automatically transferable, potential subsequent permittee must apply to the Board of Adjustment for authority to have the permit transferred. I'd like to call the roll on the amendment.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Amendment carried.
And now I'd like to move to action to approve ordinance 2017-0, an ordinance providing for the amendment of ordinance 2015-03 as amended. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Miller?
No.
Krogman?
No.
Jensen?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Moving on.
But before we move on, what are we doing with our administrative ordinance then?
Well, I'm assuming if we make a substantial change, we'll have to bring it and go through a public hearing again and everything like that.
So are you sending it back to planning and zoning? Are you making some amendments? Are we not having an administrative ordinance? What are we doing now?
I guess I would like to hear from the zoning board on it and see what they came back, because we've substantially changed what they came with, and I'm concerned, with making this substantial change that we're going to make some unintended consequences, and I'd like to hear from the zoning board's reasoning of where they're at.
So we had some concerns from the zoning and then some clarification in different conditional uses.
So what we're doing is sending this back to planning and zoning and asking them to read this and to make any recommended changes, or to pass it as it is, to just to let the commission know what their position is on the changes that we've made.
Yeah. I mean, 14 days, I think that's there, but, in my opinion, changing this conditional use to do that has some unintended potential consequences. I understand for certain conditional uses, it seems to have its place, but when you make a blanket conditional use thing, that there's other conditional uses that could get caught up into this. And I want to hear from the people that are making that decision, why, if they feel that this is something that is feeling the same way I am, or if it's something they could handle. Because where Commissioner Bartley talked about it previously was that the zoning board may have that ability to do some of that for certain things. And so I would rather have that conversation with them and say, is this something you feel you can do, or do we need to put this on as a blanket, and see what their thoughts are there. They're going to be the ones that are going to be handling these, and I want to get their full understanding. I was kind of hoping we'd have a couple of them here to get some input, because I have had some input from, but not the whole board. I'd like to see what their thoughts are. Myself, I'm concerned about a blanket. In my experience, that has unintended consequences on certain things. So can the zoning board use their process and their ability to take each individual conditional use, and do they have that ability to, if they feel there's a large issue that would affect a lot of people, could they turn around and say, I'm approving this, but it is understood it's, if you want to transfer this, you need to come back. And if that's the case on those certain conditional use, they can handle that. And again, that's just my thought on it and that kind of thing too.
So the question, I just want to be sure when I'm sitting on planning and zoning that I can convey what the commission, or that Mr. Hill can convey what the commission wants. And the question is, if I understood, everybody likes the 14 days versus the 10 days. Is that correct? Okay.
Well, and the comments that I received were negative on both, but I guess I can live with the 14 days. It's the other one.
And then the other question is whether or not planning and zoning feels that they would have the ability to make a determination at the time of the issuance of a conditional use permit whether or not it should be transferable. Is that what the question was? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, Commissioner Barley pointing that out, saying they have that ability, they're just not using it, or have not used it, or do they not know they have that ability? I don't know.
They
I
didn't
guess
know they had that ability.
Right, and so that's that conversation I wanna have, and I understand, the compromise of it and that kind of thing. I think that's important to do that, but again, I struggle with a blanket that then affects other conditional uses that could get caught up through other things. That it's like, why can't I transfer from a father to a son a conditional use who's going to take over my operation? Why do I have to go through that if that becomes an issue? And all of a sudden, all of them are non-transferable because everybody wants to check it out. If that's a simple thing, maybe shouldn't have to go through that process.
And the one question I had is, like, their state permits, how does the state handle that? The permit through that conditional use permit, are they just automatically, do they go with the facility, or does that individual have to apply to the?
They have to apply and get a new permit. Is that correct, Mr. Hill?
No, at the state level, they transfer. The state transfers each like mining permit or whichever conditional use permit you're dealing with has got an individual number to it, and then that permit gets transferred over to the new owner. But they do have to go through the state of South Dakota to transfer it.
Right, but it's not. I don't believe that's an automatic transfer.
That I could not tell you, ma'am.
That's one of the questions that was brought.
Okay,
but we will find out for you.
So basically, as I understand it, what we're asking the Board of Adjustment to do is review Section 10 of this. The rest of it, we're not going to discuss. I'd like it to be specific if we're going to send it back, that this is what we're asking you to review, not the entire document.
For me, that's it. I'm okay with the 14 days. If they decide they want to discuss the 14 days, they can come back with that too.
I'm just looking at, I don't want to start the process over with planning and zoning to have hearings on the entire document. Again, I don't think that's necessary, but I do agree that this may need a further discussion on that board to make sure that this is what they want, and and we probably should be represented at that meeting to discuss our concerns with them directly also. But let's just limit it to this particular section, if we can.
And we do need that clarification because this is an ongoing thing. We've been working on this for a long time. I'm okay if this is what it is, but I don't want to go back and have our planning and zoning dig into this document one more time. It's been back and forth and back and forth. So as long as we're just talking about number 10, the transferability of conditional use permits, just so we have that as clarification, because otherwise I'm afraid we're going to get off track. So
right. That's my point. So we don't need a motion for that. We just need agreement that that's essentially what we're referring it back for.
I don't think we need a motion. We just need to know that is the direction that the commission is taking. And then that can go through Mr. Hill and Richard and myself and Leanne.
Well, that's my suggestion anyway.
Okay, going back to regular business. We are at Commission Department Director Report.
As Vicki had mentioned as part of her report, the general fund surplus analysis is down just slightly at the end of November than what the averages have kind of been over the past several years. It's not significantly down where we're concerned at all, but when we're looking at the potential for designating funds at the end of the year, next week, we're going to be looking at this again and running those numbers. We like to be right around that, 25 to 28%. So there may be some opportunity there to do some designation of funds, but we will bring that to you at the meeting next week. I did include, they had made a mistake on the map that I presented to you for the districts at the last meeting. This is the corrected version of the new South Dakota Counties district map. It does now include Spink and Beetle counties as part of the Sioux Valley group. Capitol, Brookings SDSU Day at the Capitol is Wednesday, January 17th. Mr. Murheb at the Chamber had reached out asking for some talking points. I want to just pass that along to you. I know that most of you probably plan to attend that, so if there are some specific talking points, you can either share those directly with him or you can get those to me and I can get those to him as well. He's looking, though, for those by the 5th of January. Some information from... Well, I'll go on and follow my report. NACO National Convention is July 13th through the 16th next year in Nashville. And at budget time, we did budget for 3 people to attend the conference. Initially, the discussion was Commissioners Bartley and Jensen and myself. There was also in my budget notes that there would be contingency, available that the commission would look at utilizing if additional folks wanted to attend that. I'd like to start making some reservations and looking at airline tickets and whatnot. I think there's a couple of department heads too that may be planning on going in July, and so I thought maybe we could do something as a group and plan. And I want to get that moving because, believe it or not, it'll be here before you know it. So I was wanted to touch base on who plans to attend that, so I can kind of get my numbers in order. July 13th through the 16th, and it's in Nashville.
Stacy, when's the legislative conference, NACO's legislative conference in March?
When is that?
Yeah, that's scheduled, I think.
Let me grab my calendar quick. That is the 3rd through the 7th, the NACO Ledge Conference. And then the WEIR conference was, which is it's another NACO conference. That's the Western Interstate Region is what WEIR stands for. That's in a few days in May, and that's just our kind of Midwest counties, I believe, that participate in that, kind of as a smaller group event.
Have we attended the legislative conference? That one looks a little bit more interesting to me to attend than the national conference.
Commissioners, yes, in the past have gone to that, yes.
So we still have an option, even though we budgeted one or the other, not both, but
yeah, I'm not sure on location. Well, Ledge Conference probably is always in Washington D.C.
Yeah, it's always in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
So I could look into if that's something you're interested in. I could look into that. We have a commission meeting during that time because I wasn't sure, but if there's more that want to go, we can adjust that too. So
that was the one that I'd also indicated that I was interested in as opposed to the one in July.
Okay.
I just think this year there might be more meat and potatoes at the legislative conference than there would be at the national conference.
Yes, and you've got a chance to talk to the representatives.
Okay. I don't know if they have the agenda out for that yet, but I'll look online and I'll let you know what I'm thinking.
Okay. I can look. I know the NACO website does have conference information on it. Mm-hmm. So what about the national convention? Does anybody plan to attend that on? Are you going to go to the national convention? Are you still interested in going to one? You want to go to Nashville? Okay. Stephanie or Ryan? No? Okay. Okay. I'll try to get some information put out on that too to everybody. And then Lynn Bren, who is with us via telephone a couple of weeks ago, you had asked for some information from her about quotes for liability limit changes, as well as for options for buildings and contents. And that information she included here in an email to us. And then as far as the volunteers, too, there was some discussion on that. And Brad Wilson with Insurance Benefits, who is our work comp policy provider, and he's coming, first meeting in February, I believe, to come and kind of have a similar discussion as what Lynn had a couple of weeks ago, but he's going to come and discuss work comp. But in reviewing that, it was asked what we pay for volunteers. And for our RSVP volunteers, the drivers for the sheriff's office, we do pay $36 per volunteer per year to cover them under work comp. For storm spotters and then the recreational volunteers, which the BCOAC folks would fall under, is $10 per volunteer per month. And we do have those individuals all listed now, the RSVP drivers, storm spotters, and the BCOAC volunteers. So, and again, if the board wishes not to cover them under our work comp policy, it's just simple action by the board. Let me know, and I can get that on a future agenda. But as of now, they are covered. And again, Brad's coming. I don't know if there was any discussion on Ms. Bren's quotes. If you wanted, Laura and I to look at that a little bit closer to see. If something were to happen, it's really pretty minimal amounts overall. I mean, it's not a huge difference. So,
and the benefits for the storm spotters, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is if by chance we got slimed literally by a tornado or that wiped out all cell towers and telephone lines, these people most of them's got backup generators, and they can put their ham radio. They're all ham radio operators. Is what my storm spotters are, and they would be our relay to the outside world if a big disaster occurred and we needed to make communication contact. That's my 2 cents in it. I think it's a worthwhile program.
Okay.
I don't know. The cost doesn't seem to.
No, it doesn't change much.
On those work comp stuff too. I guess the deductible thing we can talk about that, I guess, but I'm okay with the $10 for the thing. I don't know if anybody else is. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess so the deductible we have in our building is we're at $250 or $500. $250.
$250.
If we went to the deductible of $10,000, it saves us $5,000. So within 2 years, if we don't have anything, we save that amount of money anyway. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't know how many we've had, but I think we've got funds in reserve enough to cover a $10,000 deductible, or if something happens and it's $1,500, we're probably okay with that. But saving $5,000 a year to me makes sense. To do that within 2 years. If we had to pay out a major thing within 2 years after that, we'd have to pay it back. So I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are on it.
Does anybody else have any
other thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to agree with that. I think we can withstand a $10,000 hit if it actually happened, so I don't see any reason not to say $5,000 a year for a couple of years. We're even on it, so I don't know how many claims we've had. I'm new to this, but have we had any?
I don't.
I think the claim with that fire out there was that minimal that we had. Dick? At the highway.
Yeah, it was like $2,300.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'm in favor of the 10,000 deductible.
Other commissioners?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Move to the 10,000 deductible on the building.
Okay. Anything else there? Otherwise, I'll move on to my last item.
I just wasn't sure what the annual contribution, the limit, what's the next box down after the building one?
Annual contribution?
Coverage limit. And
Yeah.
I was thinking you had
Was
made
that our liability on our
Yes.
automotive?
Yes.
Is that what it is? It doesn't
Yes.
say that,
No,
so I couldn't
no,
tell that's what it was.
it's not.
I think you had talked about, you thought $1 million wasn't enough.
Uh-huh. I do think that's not enough in today's, and the difference to raise that to 2 million is what? $1,800 a year?
Yep.
That, I think, would be good planning for us to do that. That's, when people are injured in an automobile accident, and if we have, and that, if I recall correctly, had to do with the per occurrence, not per person. So if you had 3 people that were injured in an automobile accident, that was one of our employees' responsibility, we would not have enough coverage to take care of that. I just think we should increase that.
I would have to agree.
I guess we just saved 5,000, so we could take part of that.
So we'll save about 3,000.
Yeah.
It'll.
Or you look at the $3 million limit, another $700 too. I mean,
I don't think we need to go that far.
it's,
I think the 2 is sufficient.
Okay. Okay. All right, and then the last thing that I had on my report was there was, I think Marty had kind of mentioned it already, that he had had a meeting with State's Attorney Howard, and I believe Chief Deputy Nesvold was involved about the involuntary mental health committals, and there was maybe some conversation about the possibility of using a Vera versus Health and Human Services down in Yankton. There's a financial impact there. So I think there was just some discussion on whether or not it should come back to this board for discussion on whether that's an avenue that we would like to pursue or not.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's probably something we should discuss, but I think I've already tried to do a little bit of research on this, and I intend to get a little bit more research on it as far as the costs are concerned, and then we'll bring that back to an executive. If you're starting to look at contracts and changing things, then that's an executive session decision. So if the commission's okay with that, I'll just do the research and bring it back to you at a future time.
Okay. Then just some upcoming dates. Last night, I think some of you attended the East Brookings Business and Industry Association meeting. County offices will be closed Monday, Tuesday next week for Christmas. Next Thursday, the 28th at 8:30, we do have kind of that special commission year-end meeting that will be doing some wrap-up items, some contingency transfers, and looking at possible designations, things of that nature. So it shouldn't be a terribly long meeting.
I will be traveling, I think. I still don't know for sure, so I would have to be on the phone.
Will you be available via phone?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I'm hoping so. I'm not exactly sure what time leaving in the morning. We may delay it a little bit. So.
Okay.
Better, we'll be spending money.
January 1st, offices will be closed for New Year's, and then just some other upcoming holidays, the 15th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and then I had mentioned earlier Brookings Day at the Capitol on January 17th. And that's all I have.
Deputy State's Attorney's report.
I continue to work on ordinances with Leanne and Mr. Hill and Mr. Haugen and Luke from First District. We are continually busy. I do believe we had jail numbers in the about 47 there for about 3 or 4 days, so we were pretty tight with a lot of hearings and inmates. And other than that, just working on various other projects, so nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Pierce?
On December 5th, we had the county planning and zoning meeting. Again, another busy night. You saw some of the stuff today, the zoning request and the 2 plats. We had multiple requests for some variances that, I think there were 3 variances that were denied, and some other ones that were granted. It was just a busy night. Met with Terry and Bob and Richard and Luke on the 6th to work on the ordinances. And right now, we're kind of moving through that section of the ordinance that deals with where you can build out in the county when you've got, whether it's a building site or not, on a parcel that's less than 35 acres, which that's going to be interesting once we get all that back in front of everybody. Attended the Mayor's Holiday Party on December 7th. Went to the City Comp Plan Advisory Meeting as the county representative on December 11th. And I think that they may be going to have their public hearing sometime in April. That's where they're aiming at. We've seen different parts now of the final plan, but we haven't seen it all put together as one piece. But that should be coming soon. On December 13th, we had the Joint Jurisdiction Committee meeting that Mr. Hill already reported on. And this was the first meeting of all members. So we had everybody that was there, and we were looking at the joint jurisdiction boundaries, and we pulled out maps, and everybody kind of drew what they thought the boundary should be. It's going to be interesting when we start looking at that. When you go east, we are limited on our joint jurisdiction. It's less than the 3 miles that we had before because of how the city's expanded. But what the law is, as relates to the distance between Brookings and Aurora and Brookings and Volga, is you divide that area in half, and each city has half of that for joint jurisdiction. So we don't any longer have 3 miles, I don't think, even between Volga and Brookings. So those boundaries probably are not changing. They are what they are. Now, it is possible to have an agreement with, for example, Aurora to say that the Brookings joint jurisdiction boundary could move further out. You can enter into an agreement on that, but if there's no agreement, it's what's in the middle. So kind of interesting. And attended the city-county potluck on December 13th, and thank you to everybody that worked to put that together. Went to the meeting last night with, I think, most of you at the East Brookings Business and Industry Group, and they did pass the resolution encouraging the county to finish 213th. And I have a question for you. When will that come up again on our agenda? When are we going to discuss that and make a decision? I know we did our hydrology report and we got back our recommendation, and then it just seems like we keep saying we're going to talk about that again at another time, and then we never get to that other time. When do we have that discussion?
I guess, go ahead.
Well, it's going to be a budgetary issue.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess that's probably when we have that discussion. The hydrology report told us that was going to be a very expensive thing to do, and I feel like we have to wait and see what happens with our next big grant, whether or not we get that other bridge on Old 77 from the big. Because if we do, then maybe we can afford to think about that. But if we don't and we have to do that bridge, then there's no way that I think we can do 213 at this time.
And it's just budgetary. We need to see what our expenses are and where we want to spend them and how much we want to spend, I guess. And so that's where I'm at on it, I guess. That's what I would wait and see.
I guess, there's some recommendations on the hydrology on the structure that's currently out there, the box culvert. That was kind of a minor, it was minor, but extending that culvert. There's some other structures within there. If it's something minor that we could do, if the highway department had time to address those issues, it would just be those structures. But as for the grading project, yeah, we have to wait and see if we have the funds available. Remember, it is a county road now, and if we have water issues out there, we have to address those issues, no matter if we're going to upgrade that road, in the future. But if we do some work with the structures, we want to make sure it's compatible to the project in the future, so we don't have to redo them. So, that's something to look at too. So.
And then I just stopped by the OAC for the membership meeting last night. When I was there, there were a lot of people there, but I don't know how all that came out. And then the last thing, I do not believe that I'm going to be able to go to Brookings Day at the legislature. And I am curious, because we're talking about it at governmental affairs right now and getting everything ready for that. Who all is thinking that they're going to be able to attend?
I'm going to try. That's January 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
Larry
think
and
4 of
Stephanie,
us
you're
are
both
going.
planning on going?
I think
Great.
so.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Bartley?
Kind of light this time around. I was gone for a few days, but December 12th, Leadership Brookings, myself along with Commissioners Jensen and Miller attended that. It was well attended as far as our staff. I thank the staff for showing up and giving a presentation on their responsibilities and duties for the county. So that went well. The 13th, we had the joint jurisdiction meeting, as Commissioner Pierce has already reported on, so I won't go into that. And then last night, I wasn't able to attend the reception or the meeting of these Brookings meeting group because we had the essential behavioral health meeting, basically continuing there to look at how we're going to structure the organization in the near future and hopefully to make some decisions in January. And I was gone from the 7th to the 11th at a race in Virginia International Raceway. And it hasn't snowed in Virginia at this racetrack in 4 years. We raced in 4 inches of snow. We ended up taking second place because we drive in snow all the time. We did all right.
You had snow tires, is that right?
That was a rain tire, actually. We did okay.
Mr. Krogman?
Yeah, December 7th, it's at the Mayor's Appreciation Reception, was well attended. And then had the advisory meeting right after that and went through a lot of stuff there, approved the bylaws, and have just continued to make progress on getting to some normalcy with the building, if you can say that. But a lot of meetings, a lot of stuff we're going on out there. We got another one tonight for the operating procedures for each of the reigns to try to get those taken care of, and just starting to work on programming, starting to get into working for advertising. Obviously we've got a budget coming up here in January 1st, so don't want to spend a lot right now. We got to start getting in within our budget and all that kind of stuff. So holding off on a little bit of that, but we really want to get going with advertising that we're open for business and everything like that. So, and then on the 18th, which I think was yesterday, we had the East Brookings Business Association there. We were able to stick around there for about an hour. It was well attended there again, and I appreciate Daktronics for hosting. And then had their membership open house last night from 6 till 9, and had some good conversation with members, and overall seem pretty happy with how things are going, and hopefully we can continue to expand our membership base. So
That's it for me.
Commissioner Miller?
December 5th, I attended the archery range committee meeting. I thought that the vice chair of that was going to apply for our person on the advisory board, but it appears as though he hasn't done that. Oh, all right, good, okay, excellent. December 6th, I attended the weed board meeting, and she was finalizing all of the year-end stuff. On December 7th, I attended the mayor's holiday party at McCrory Gardens, and if you get an opportunity to go there, it is beautiful this time of year, especially in the back, how they decorate. And then I went on to the BCOAC advisory board meeting, and Ryan pretty well already reported on that. December 12th at 10, we spoke to the leadership Brookings group. They didn't ask as many questions, so we had to talk a little more, but it went well, and I also want to thank the department heads for taking the time to do that. And at 4:30, I went out to the Innovation Campus for the Company of the Year Award, and I totally apologize, I can't remember the name of the company. But what they do really stuck with me because it's research using lambs, and they implant some type of DNA that produces mega DNA that fights Parkinson's, is what their main focus is right now, but it also affects Alzheimer's and Huntington's. And so their research is ongoing, and I just think it is amazing that we have a company here that is doing something that actually impacts that. They're having a little trouble getting through the FDA because they don't want to use anything that has wool on it. But ultimately, I feel like if they advertise, they don't have enough people raising sheep. That's a small market here. I feel like if they tell our farmers and ranchers that they need sheep, they will step up and do this. And I'm really encouraged by this, and especially because my mother died of Alzheimer's. So I really hope, I told him hurry. December 13th, I traveled to Pierre, so I had to miss the potluck for the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners Board of Directors meeting. And we went through resolutions and updated and got rid of things that are totally outdated. And it was an interesting meeting. I had some phone conversations throughout the couple weeks with BCOAC people. And on December 18th, I attended East Brookings business meeting with some of the rest of you. I always enjoy going out to that. It's a good chance to talk to people out there and get their ideas of what's going on. And then from 6 to 9, I was with Ryan at the membership night at BCOAC, and it was pretty well attended. I was impressed by that. So that's all I have.
Okay, on the 7th, I attended the Mayor's Appreciation out at McCrory Gardens. And like I said, it was great food and conversation, I guess. And like the Christmas trees, it's amazing all the lights and stuff that's up out there. On the 11th, I was at a fireman's meeting, and Basin Electric come in and gave a kind of a brief presentation and a donation to the fire department. But one question came up while we were there, and Bob, you might be able to answer this. What's status of the wind towers south of White than the new ones?
It actually looks pretty promising from what I understand. We had that tabletop up there earlier this month, and they seem to think that they're going to start coming in. We're going to only get a few, and then Dole County is supposed to get a big farm north of what they've got now.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounded promising, at least from the guys at IB Droller at the wind tower. People that work on the wind towers seem to think it's going to happen pretty fast.
Okay, thank you. On the 12th, we had the leadership Brookings group here. I can't thank the department heads that came and spoke. It's not a required deal. You showed up, and it really helped out as commissioners, and explained to the people what each department actually does. On the 18th, last night, Daktronics, the East Business meeting. I think commissioners that showed up also. It was a good conversation. Kind of just like say, know what's going on in the area out there. Brought up the 6th Street project and how beneficial 34th Avenue was to the 6th Street project, and it's great when everybody can work together to get some of that stuff done. I also have here the Otter Tail sub up very east of Toronto. If anybody wants to look at the finding and facts, have it here. I believe Stacy's got a zip drive. You can have it downloaded, but it's very positive up there. There's only a little road concern. It's a half mile, and it's kind of in a bad area, but that's about the only concern up there. The community is welcoming it, and I guess the only reason Brookings County and I was involved was they take a 5-mile circle within the area from the plant, and it touches Brookings County. So I was on the board there. I signed the finding facts and everything, so it's be submitted to move forward. And I guess that's all I have. Also, it's just about 9:30. I have a request for a 5-minute recess. We'll move with that. So I told him, I said, I'll get there. I can blade in the dark, I guess. I can blade all night. That township, I mean, it's December. He wants it done before snow gets here. It might not happen. It's 10:30. You have a scheduled Doug Wessel from Banner and Associates here. Action to approve resolution number 17-55, a bridge improvement grant program resolution authorizing submission of applications. I have a motion. Need a second. I have a motion and a second. Discussion, Doug?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm not sure what you want me to discuss here. There was a couple options regarding those two structures and kind of the format of how we were planning on submitting the bridge grant applications. And I guess if there's any discussion items, I'm sure I'm here to answer whatever questions you might have.
I guess the first one is structures number 06-147200. Is there questions? Any commissioners have any questions? Or
And that's obviously the one's right next to the other one.
No, that's the one on County Road 12.
Okay.
North of the country club, about 3 or 4 miles on the east-west road.
It's on the structure location right here on your description. 4 south, 2.3 west of Brookings over the Big Sioux River.
That's on the. Oh, that's on the country. That's on the country club road. Or is that the
It's
side?
on
This
the
is on
east-west.
County Road, this is the run on County Road 12.
Right.
On the Sinai Oil.
Sinai Road. Okay.
Yes.
So there's two big ones, and that's the Sinai Road one. The other one's this old 77 one.
Yep.
Okay. That's I just wanted. I wasn't seeing exactly where it was at. So.
Is there any questions?
So this basically is we're authorizing just the submission of the application.
Correct.
For those two, and then we need. Okay. Yeah.
Because there's no further discussion, call the roll, please.
Pierce. Miller.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 2, action to approve resolution number 17-56, a bridge improvement grant program resolution authorizing submission of applications. It's for structure number 06-169-238.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I believe this is a structure adjacent to the one we have already received the grant from.
That's correct.
Is there any questions for?
Doug, on the distance, 7.8 miles south, that seems a little bit far, but where would that be from the point they measure?
That'd be from the center of town.
Okay, there.
Yeah. Okay, hearing none other good questions, call the roll, please.
Miller. Aye. Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce. Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We have item 3, action to approve right-of-way certificate.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the right-of-way certificates. Call the roll, please.
Krogman.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce. Miller.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 4, action to approve utility certificate.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Utility certificate. Call the roll, please.
Bartley.
Aye.
Pierce. Miller.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
make a decision here. Option A or B, or how much we want to contribute
Which is this on?
for.
Yeah. What we're looking for now from you guys is which option you want to do.
Right.
Okay. I guess, Doug, what option would you suggest?
I would recommend B. That goes in line with your guys' financial commitment and also matches up to the existing structure that has already been selected for a grant.
That's what I'm...
60, well.
Option B, you would be looking at about a 39% contribute on that for that structure. Excuse me, 35% on the 169 and the 39% on the 147. Because we're also limited by that $4 million cap.
Right. And so we have, the other option is to put more into one and less into another to try to get one through or higher number for. So the risk is all of them are higher than the big score that we come in, we're not going to get either of them. Or we do the other option to try to put a little extra more to one, try to get it to as high a score as possible to at least get one, is basically how I'm kind of reading it.
That's correct. And then, like I told you before, we don't know for sure what the other scores are going to be. So
Right.
It's whatever you guys feel is you guys need to do.
I wish I knew. Do we know how much we've already put in to
238.
238?
Yeah, we've probably put in 136,000, something like that.
Yeah, we had, to get that bid ready, you guys hired Banner to prepare the plans, which we will be submitting for bid-ready plans on that grant application. I can't remember. I think Dick's right. I believe that was the limiting fee on our.
And then we also paid the state $10,000 to do the borings, which would be another 10,000, but out of $2.5 million, that's pretty.
So we're not.
That's on 238.
That's on 238. Yes. Yeah. 147, you have hired us to do basically the hydraulics to get it ready for the construction grant. But that bridge has not been designed yet. That's part of your grant application for this one, is to get it designed.
Another tidbit of information, with option B, we will, if approved, we will use all but $1,305 of $4 million of grants available to Brookings County.
I mean, 238 is very important. They're both important, but I mean,
the other one.
And 238 would be bid ready. There would be no holdup at the state for permits.
The state would still have to process the permits. Because, technically they don't know this is coming. I have talked to them. They know it's coming, but they can't start on it until it's actually selected for a grant. So, but yes, it'd be classified as bid ready, but basically bid ready is almost bid ready for review.
Tell me again, just because I can't remember, the $4 million is over what time period?
3 years.
3 years?
I guess here's my concern, is I'm worried not getting nothing. Because we've kind of committed to both of those bridges that we can't wait for another go around to wait for that, to do that. And if we don't get anything, then we're not close to our 4 and we're not there, and we're going to come up with a pretty good chunk of change if we keep doing that. If we get one at least, and we have to pay to get the score up, pay the 50%, we still stay within our numbers, I think, and we risk of not getting the one that were there, but we do it ourselves right next to it and try to save some money. So I don't know. I'm worried about 74 being the cutoff, and we don't get anything. You know?
No, that could be, and I can't tell you that, and no one can
No one can tell us that, and that's just I want to get one because we're not going to get both, obviously, because
you could,
but we can't get. That'd be too much. What we've
No,
already.
that's the option is to
That's where we're at.
get them both and get underneath
Even
4 million.
combined from the other one though too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd still have $1,300 coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was one or the other.
No,
that
this is for both.
We'd be able to do one bridge, and that was about it.
No, this is for both of them.
That's why the percentage is
that's why
above the 20.
But I don't think our percentage is high enough based on what people's percentages were last year that got funded. That it just seems to me like we might do better to raise our percentage. And I realize we wouldn't be, we still would have some of that 4 million, but we'll want to apply for something the year after anyway. So
Yeah, and if you are lucky enough to get selected for this,
Mm-hmm.
your grant amount 2 years ago was basically $224,000. So that's how much you'd have to play with the next year grant.
exactly.
Right.
And
So each year they fall off. They don't
Yeah.
start over they fall off of what you got before,
Yeah.
and that's what you get.
mhm.
Yeah.
So we almost have 2 years to wait before we would get a chance, unless we don't.
For something big, yes. Yeah. Now, just for you guys just thinking, for the 169,238, if you wanted to say, you know what, we want to get one more point by additional funding, that would create, you have to give an extra 3% because you get 1/3 of a point per percent. So if you just do that, to get one additional point on 169,238 would cost you a little over $62,000. If you want one additional point on 147,200, it's the same thing. You'd have to add an additional 3%. You're talking 48,700 per point. So that's some big numbers to get 1 point.
But 1 point would make,
That might be the difference. You never know.
Because we were half a point short.
Yeah. And last year, the very high score, and again, you can't relate. Last year, the very high score was 53.5. So you can see where you're at compared to that. But well, and that's the other thing. People. In talking to the DOT, they're expecting the points to be higher than they were last year. Now they don't know how much higher, but they expect them to be higher. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And that dollar amount would be, you wouldn't see that dollar amount till the bridge is completed? The increase if we wanted to go for an extra point.
That's true. When the state would turn around and bill you guys for your share of the project, that's when you would see that.
That could be 3-4 years down the road.
or we'd pay the money, if that's what you're saying.
I guess I would have to somewhat agree with Commissioner Krogman that these things are a priority for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so buying the extra points, I'm not that familiar with the process, but it seems to me that we should put our best foot forward right now this year. And
I agree.
We'll budget for it 3 years down the road because I'll still be here.
So you're talking, we're thinking 1 point or thinking 2 on, you could do 2 points on 147,200 for 100,000. No?
There's a limit.
No, that is figured on, on 200, we've already maxed out up to 50%. So if you want to add any for points, it would have to be for 238. Am I correct, Doug?
Well, it depends.
Unless we go option B.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
which
can flip
option?
those.
I'm sorry. Yep.
You can play with those percentages a whole lot. And, if you just say, like you're asking on 169, 238, if you wanted to get 2 additional points, that cost you $124,000.
Right. And then 2 extra points on the other one would
would
about
be
100
a little less than
90,
100.
95, something there. So for roughly 200,000, we could bump them up to 75.89, 75.69 on both of those.
Yeah.
Because if we got it, it'd be a good investment. But if we didn't, obviously it doesn't spend it, but we're stuck. I mean, we got to do some bridges.
But that doesn't, I mean, if we don't get it, whatever our percent was doesn't make any difference.
Right.
We'll pay the whole thing.
Exactly.
So is there one of these bridges that you think we're more likely to get a grant for than another one?
It's all going to be on score.
Okay, so you don't have a feel for
They're pretty.
No, I
which
mean,
one
it's
we have a better
it's-
shot at?
It's truly based on score.
They're pretty similar in point. I mean, for the detour route, there's not one that offsets the other. I mean,
Well, that's all part of the score
Right.
combination. You know,
right. There's not one that's going to score way higher than the other one. I
No,
mean,
you guys kind of know where we're sitting, and
so
you know, if you guys say, hey, we want to go option B with 2 points on each one, that gives me what I need to know, so I can get you guys in there. If that's or if there's some other way you guys want
I
to
think
do
we
it.
should do that.
Or should, what's our total cost? I'm sorry, what's the total cost on the Sinai Road Bridge? If we end up, because we're going to do that one if they don't. What's our cost on that?
The total opinion construction cost on that one is $1.54 million. Now, that does not include engineering or geotech. So I guess if you want to do the total project cost, 1.67.
And that's on the Sinai Road Bridge.
Yes.
I was thinking it was a smaller number than that for some reason.
Wishful thinking.
No, I won't.
Okay, who wants to put their poker face on? Take an extra card here.
I feel like we should go 2 extra points on each one and use option B.
With the 2 additional points on each? Okay.
What's the consensus?
I think it'd be a good investment to try to get them. Because the alternative is not getting them, and it's a lot more
Right.
money. I think we made a commitment, and
I think it's money well spent. And they're very important bridges because of the infrastructure surrounding them. I mean,
And what would that put our percentage at on each one of those?
That would raise your 269, 238 up to 37%, and your 147, 200 up to 41%.
And I know when we were at the conference, we saw they took those numbers and the ones that got funded, but I can't remember what the numbers were. Anybody recall that?
I mean, the financial commitment numbers,
Yeah.
a lot of them have done, or some of them did 50%. Now,
At the top, weren't they?
yeah, those are at the top. Now, there's also, that's just 10 points of those 100 top possible points is how
Right.
you can gain by extra funding.
Right.
So it contributes, but it's not the big number.
Exactly. But those ones that were at the top that got grants had agreed to 50%. Is that what you just said?
Some of them did. I don't know if all of them did, but I know some of them did.
I believe Moody County's was a 60-40, wasn't it?
That was because they ran out of money in the grant, and they just said, hey, we have this money left,
and
we can give it to you, but it'd be a reduced rate, and they took it.
I'm only saying that because 37% might not get us over the hump on that bridge. I just want to say that.
Well, you need to also look at the scores more.
Yeah,
Because the DOT
exactly.
does not look at the percent of contribution as a decision maker.
You're looking
It's
at
the scores.
So would it cost us a lot to go to option B, but Bridge 200 go to 50% and leave 238 at 35%? That would cost us a lot of extra money, but it would, point-wise, maybe it's excessive.
Yeah, I
Because
guess
you're
I'm
going to 77-34 for your big score.
Yeah.
is what option A says.
Yeah, I guess to have to, 50% will get you that score number. That's true. Now,
7734, which seems to me would be logical to accept out there, hopefully, or be logically in a game of poker. But I don't know on 238. Well, which one do you have a priority on here? 238, or do you have it on 200? But you guys have been studying this a lot longer than I have.
We have to do this.
238 combines with 239, which was
Exactly.
already
We'd like to do it
selected. You
same
guys have
time.
made a big commitment on that end of it.
That's where we would have.
We've already got investment. We've already invested in
Yes.
that enough to try to get that one.
Yeah.
That's important. I mean, to do one and not the others
Doesn't make sense.
doesn't make no
help us.
sense.
No.
I mean, that's the number one.
Doug, maybe you could touch on a little bit for Mike's benefit. When we went to get 238 bid ready, the value of adding those points for bid ready is enormous compared to adding more money, like you say, 3% for every 1 point. And so I think that was part of the thinking, because the money we put up front is it can't be used as our contribution percentage.
It can't.
We just put it in there so that we could get it bid ready. It was money better spent. So
To qualify bid ready gives you 10 points.
Right. And so that money was probably worth more than just putting money
Oh,
out.
yeah, and that's what was part of our discussion. It was like, hey, that's a good investment to get 10 points.
10 points, because it cost us
A lot more.
$500,000 to put that in there. So, well, I don't know. My thing tells me option B with 2 more points on, and we roll with it. I guess the only thing I'm concerned with would having 2 make a difference to them. I mean, it's all score. It doesn't matter if 2 comes to Brookings County or not. It's like, well, Brookings County already has 1, so we're not giving them a
It's
second.
all score
It's
related.
all score related, so they're not going to look at it and say, well, they've got 3 already and stuff. Because Moody County obviously has passed their threshold with their last one, right?
No, they ran out of their allotment for their grant amount, and Moody County was the last one selected, and they say, this is all we have left in the pot. We can select you for a grant, but this is all we can fund you. You're going to have to make up the rest.
And they haven't even given them that money.
No, Moody County has their money set aside for the bridge, but it's.
I didn't know if they. I didn't know.
No.
I didn't know if they hit the 4 million threshold.
No.
I don't think anybody has.
Anybody has?
No.
Okay.
The,
So we're going to be against everybody, basically, because until they hit that 4 million threshold, then people will start dropping. Counties will start dropping out.
Well, they'll have less.
They'll have,
And
because they can't.
I don't think the 2 points is enough, and I'm only saying that because I remember how bad it felt when we thought the bridge north of White was shovel-ready and that we would for sure get funding on that, and we just didn't put enough into it, and we didn't get our funding. I just don't want that to happen again. That was ugly.
So a suggestion
The-
on how many points you want to buy.
How far do you want to go up?
I kind of liked what Mike was talking about.
Up 4 points?
Almost 11.
4 on each?
I'm not necessarily 4 on each, but maybe on 238.
But you said it's only 10 points as a max.
For it, you get your standard number is 20%. Okay, that's at the 0 points. The maximum they'll give you points to up to is 50 points, and they give you 1/3 of a point per percent for a maximum of 10 points. So you got 30 points, which of course then be 10 points. 30% would be 10 points.
So what would it hypothetically cost us? Because I can't do the math like that, okay? What, if we did the maximum number of points, I'm not saying we should do that, I just want to know the number. If we did the maximum number of points for each bridge, what would that cost us?
Well, you'd be looking at 23 23% more on 169, 238, so let's say it's a quarter. That would be about $500,000.
Okay. And the total cost of that project is what?
The total cost is almost 2.1 million.
Okay. And then the other one?
The other one, the total cost is 1.63.
And if we went to the maximum number of points we could have, it would cost us what? If it's at the 48.7 per.
If you went to the maximum points on that one, you'd be at almost $812,000 to go 50-50.
Exactly.
That's
and,
a mean.
and I'm
we're-
not saying
we're-
we should do that. I just want to know the numbers to be able to think about it. So
You know-
why on 238 is it only 500,000 of 2.1 million?
Well, that's to go from 27,000 to 50,000.
Okay.
If you want to go what your true cost is going to be, that'll be 1.05 million to cover your whole 50%.
So to cover the full thing on 238 would be 1.05 million, and to cover the whole thing on the other bridge is 812.
Yes. Yeah, 50%. Yep.
Mhm.
That's at 50%.
Which gets us to the total between the two bridges is 1.7 and 2 point, they're basically 4. So 1.8 would get us 2.2. Basically, right? If we got it, we'd get 2.2 from the state, and we'd pay 1.8. Roughly, is that close?
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Well, so
Then
well,
you'd be able,
no,
then you'd be able to apply it further down the road because you're going to be you wouldn't be getting your.
Exactly.
So we got.
That'd give us more money to apply for
I get
the
it.
next year.
Your restoration grant, does that count towards your $4 million?
Yes.
I get a question. That grant we received for the safety rumble strips, does not count towards this? It's just a bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your numbers if you go total 50-50 was probably 1.96 million or something like that. Right now, just for your reference, your option B, your contribution was 1.45.
About 400 extra.
Well, about 500, isn't it?
500 extra.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Is it going to be?
That's
a
the
king or a
question of the
queen?
day, isn't it?
He's got his poker face on.
Because you got another one north of Bruce that.
We have it in there. Yeah, will be eventually into the system. That's what I'm looking for your guidance because you can make whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
Well, it's easy to sit here now and say we go 50-50, but we got to come up with the cash if we do that, if we would get them.
Well, and then what happens if you didn't need it? What happens if you had enough points the way you were?
Exactly.
But
Or if we don't go and we're 1 point short and we have to pay the full amount.
Like Leanne's thinking is in the future, we'd still have room on our $4 million to apply.
You would.
In the future.
Yep. Next year you would have some room then.
But looking at the time frames, when are we going to have to spend that? Moody County's sitting looking at a bridge that hasn't even been bid yet, and they received a grant. It could be 2-3 years down the road before they have to pay. And how do they?
Yeah, right now it has the grant. The grant has to be used, and I can't remember. It's either 2 or 3 years. I can't remember what it says in the book, but there is a limit on when that grant has to be used.
And the $4 million limit is a 2-year time span, correct? 3
3 year.
3 years.
No. And it's not, and you don't have to spend it to have it drop off. All you have to do is,
Oh, okay.
If
Yeah.
it's allocated.
yeah, when it's,
It's more of a limit, so then that one drops off, the other one adds on, so
Yep.
it actually rotates longer than 4 years. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't drop off, we don't lose it if we don't use it, it just rolls over to the next year.
yes, yeah, if they give you, ways to use that construction grant.
Because the state controls the bid date, so.
Yep.
Maybe we should go up to 40% on the 238 and leave the 41 on the other one. With option B.
238 is more expensive per point though, correct?
Yes.
But
Yeah, it's a more expensive bridge.
But
yeah.
it's a more important bridge.
Well,
Well, they're both important, but
That's what I.
we need to get, that one needs to get done.
Question is then, we could always say, what if we did another point and we could put 2 points on an option B and not get a point, we could put 3 points on it and not need it, you just don't know. So I think we just got to look at what we feel comfortable spending, and it is what it is. I mean, we appreciate, the work and spending the time to try to maximize our opportunity at this here, but you could go 50-50 if you wanted to and hope to get it too, but am I comfortable spending the extra cash out of our pocket? We may not need to. I don't know.
But would give us, for the following year, if we went 50-50, then we would have an additional, I can't do the math, we'd have 1.5 million, is that pretty close, that we could use for another bridge out of our 4 million?
Well, if you are contributing an extra $500,000, then you combine that with 225, so basically you have 750,000.
Yeah, okay, 750, okay.
But what concerns me is I don't want to wait another year before we do one of these two bridges.
Oh, no.
No.
Right.
We can't.
And so we'd have to look at a different bridge other than these two and try to get that one scored. And then the problem is you put 50% towards that.
Exactly. We still got to put up our share for the next.
You could have another restoration. Is there any that are a restoration project that we might need?
There is one up by Bruce. Is that where we just replaced the bridge bearings? In the 5-year plan is to take out the open joints to stop the water and the salt from dripping down on there. That is a rehabilitation project out there.
So that's where the extra that in the future. It's going to cost one way or the other. Going to spend the money.
Exactly.
What do you think?
I'm 40-41, and if we lose it, you guys can say I told you so.
And I'm 50-50 because we'd get the money back the next year for something else on a restoration grant or whatever. And we're not playing Russian roulette on getting something. We've done everything then that we can do to get the most points that we can, right?
That's true.
I would go for option B with no additional money. Therefore, we would recoup within $1,300 of our maximum $4 million in 3 years, and I'll be a hero.
The alternative is if you don't get them,
Then you know what happens.
Yeah.
Mike, how do you?
Well, when it comes to gambling, I'm the worst one in the world for that, but I like the idea of increasing our percentage on both bridges. I just don't know what that figure would be. I understand that we would be able to use this for some restoration grants later down the road. But if we don't get this, then everything changes again. We start all over. And I think we need to get these projects done. So I think maximizing our percentage to help us with our point score is probably judicious. It's just we don't know if it'll work or not, or if we've overpaid. But we haven't overpaid if we can use it later.
Well, yeah, you'd have more grants amount available for you, yes.
And we have things down the road that would come into play. So for me, the 50-50 up front gives us our best shot to get these two projects done. And we'll get the other projects down the road.
So if we would go the 50-50 on option B, out of pocket, right, because option B, you have 1.4 out of pocket. Would that bump us another 500,000 to 2 million out of pocket at the end of the day?
Yeah, you take 2.1 and then just round numbers, 1.63, which is what, 373. So let's make that 374. So whatever half of 374 is, was that 16, 700, 1.6? No.
1.6.
Okay. That'd be your contribution versus option, which one do you, option?
Well, I think either one, it doesn't matter now.
It's about 1.45, yeah. So you're contributing about, I think we figured out about $500,000 extra additional.
To get to 50-50.
Yes.
Yep.
I think we do it.
I agree.
At that point, I'll make a motion that we go to 50-50 on the percentages on both bridges.
Using option B.
Well, you need
No, it doesn't matter. Just 50-50.
It's just, we don't need a motion, we just general consensus.
Yeah. So just consensus.
I think it's, to accelerate the bridge program, I think we should move forward with it, 50-50.
No, just like you guys said, then you've done everything you could.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the thing about it is time is of the essence for these bridges. We can't wait around 2 more years to hope they qualify again. We need to get these 2 done. So we're going to put everything we can to get them done and get them done this year. So
Okay.
that's my opinion.
Okay.
Have a consensus.
All righty.
Took a while.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
A little late, but.
Okay, moving on to letter F, 11 o'clock, Brookings Empowerment Project presentation. And we'll invite you forward.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We want to thank you for giving us the time to present to you why we're here, as we are representing what's called BEP, Brookings Empowerment. We're here to ask, yes.
Introduce yourself.
I'm doing it just a little different than out of the box.
Okay.
I'm just, but you're listening. I got your attention already. We're here to ask you to consider to supporting us, BEP, in any way that you can. Between the three of us, here we go. There's Craig, who is to my left, and Sally, who is in the red, who is in the back, and she'll come up and sit here as soon as I'm done. Between the three of us, we have about a 15-minute, give or take, presentation. We're asking if you have any questions of us, you just wait till we're done, and then we'd be glad to entertain them, so to speak. My name is Doug O'Neill. I'm a parent of 2 children, adult children, that have mental health issues. I'm also a member of BEP, and we have about 60 members currently within the city and the county. BEP's mission is to empower with resources and support for caregivers and individuals with persistent mental health issues. The real important thing here is really caregivers, because if caregivers falter, usually the individual will. I joined BEP because through my own personal experiences with my family, I have experienced this is within the community, the county, the city, gaps in services, gaps in support, and the stigma that is held by both the family and the individual and their caregivers in the community with regards to mental health is really intense. BEP and our website is called empoweringbrookings.org. We're an organization that seeks to collaborate with the organizations and services within our community to close the gaps, to strengthen service, and to battle the stigma. We have three major focuses in our organizations. Number one, we wish to educate our community to help the battle of stigma. We would not do the stigma to cancer patients that we do to mental illness. You wouldn't allow it to occur. We note this because we go through what's called a mental health forum annually. We try to do it approximately the first week of October, which is National Mental Health Week. In addition, we have established a BEP collection of books in the Brookings Library for people who wish to read or to find out more about the scenario and the stigma and the issues of mental health. This collection of books reviews and is read by our organization, we think, has been very helpful for many in the journey in dealing with mental health, either as a personal issue or for the victims or the clients themselves. Second, crisis management, or the development of tools and resources for caregivers and individuals in crisis. This would include a resource guide and a roadmap. That resource guide would help both the individual and the caregiver, some of which we have already supported and which is going through development this year. Third, transitional housing development in the community for individuals coming out of inpatient care and wanting to transition back into the Brookings City, County, and regional area. This focus is what we will be spending most of our time this morning discussing. I have some cards I'll lay in the back that gives you an idea of what BEP is about and gives you a little more detail of what we're thinking. Now I'm going to introduce Craig Paul to my left, and he is the president of BEP, and he will give you a quick overview of our thoughts on transitional housing and BEP projects.
Yeah, remind me to talk into this, would you? My voice will fade on me pretty bad sometimes, but yeah, my name is Craig Paul. I'm also a parent of 2 adult children with mental health issues, and I want to thank you for giving us time to hear about BEP and to help contribute to the conversation that's going on in the community and in the county and actually nationally around mental health. Again, to kind of restate the mission of BEP is we empower with resources and support caregivers and individuals with persistent mental illness. We kind of have a tagline as a nonprofit, and that's to educate the community, advocate in the community, and then take action wherever we need to take action. And one of the reasons we're here talking to you today is we've identified an action we think we can take, and we're looking for your support. That focus for us is housing. Now, why housing? Housing is expensive in Brookings. There's low availability of subsidized housing in Brookings. There's a waiting list for housing vouchers in Brookings. And honestly, there's zero transitional housing or supportive housing or temporary housing for mental health clients in Brookings. Now, Brookings isn't the only community that has this gap, but as a lot of us at BEP talk, let's have Brookings lead the way for a change rather than following what happens in every other city and county, or waiting for Sioux Falls is kind of the thing that we kind of don't want to happen. Now, one of the things in preparation for our conversation with you today and for the city, we've done the same conversation with them, is we found what we call a housing continuum. Now, this wasn't developed by us, but it was developed by the NAMI organization in Florida, and it seemed to make sense to us, at least illustrate some of the things around the housing that we're proposing. And in this continuum, it goes from on my left side, I think that's your left as well, right? Is the low-cost side of it, and that's self-sufficiency, and that's like home ownership. And on the right-hand side would be dependent care or high cost to the state, and that's actually institutional care. That would be much like the Human Services Center in Yankton. And then there's various other segments that are kind of created on this continuum. In some cases, South Dakota has nothing that matches up with that. In other cases, we do. And so we're trying to position ourselves using that as a guide. Now, if we start to look at two segments within there, that's supportive housing and special needs housing and halfway residential and transitional facilities, those things are options that are what we call serviced enriched options. So usually included in those options are services that may already exist in our community. And we as BEP don't want to recreate those services. We want to use those services. All we want to do is add a housing component to that. And so when we place what we call Beep House on this continuum, it's right there. So we are not, in the course of our development here, looking to develop those services because for the most part they exist. They may not be enough of them, but right now a lot of those services exist in the community, and that's where we would kind of place the house. So why temporary housing? First off, it's easier to set up, probably with lower cost than anything else. Temporary housing gives clients support while they transition back into independence. It has the highest potential client need because when we start to look at some of the special groupings of folks with mental health issues in our community and in our state, when we start to deal with some of those diagnoses, transitional care isn't necessarily an immediate need for them. However, just about everybody else needs to go through some kind of transition as they come back into community, because one of the biggest relapse issues for anyone with mental health issues is the aloneness and the lack of structure and purpose if you just dump them into an apartment on their own and there's nothing else there for them. They even though they've gone through all the inpatient stuff, they are still not strong enough to kind of take that step. And so this is kind of allows them a baby step, if you will. And then we also look at not duplicating existing local resources and services. I mean, we have mental health care providers in the community. You know, we have rehab, we have all of those things that are available to these clients. But typically the first thing they're going to face when they're discharged out of the Human Services Center in Yankton or out of Avera is, where am I going to live? And then they're faced with all of that hurdle of paperwork, finding a place that they can match up with, and all of those kind of things that create a barrier for them. And then in addition to that, we as an organization are new to the housing thing as well, so we need to teach ourselves how to do housing, and we also need to teach the community on how to do housing for mental health clients. And so we kind of view this as a pilot. So here's the budget for BEP as approved by our executive committee and will be reviewed by our board of directors in January. It's a total budget need of $34,000. Of that component, our housing project, which is a new budget line item for us this next year, is $27,000 and some odd dollars. And if you look down below, you can see the detail breakout for that. I'd be glad to answer some of those questions maybe later about that particular detail, and I'm not sure that that's probably the intent of our conversation here. We're trying to get you to think about how we would position this and how it would work in the community. I'm now going to turn over to the conversation over to Sally Dahm, who is our chairperson for our housing committee within Brookings Empowerment.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Craig. Well, my name is Sally Dahm Nordby, and I chair the BEP Housing Committee. And unlike Doug and Craig, I'm not a parent. But where's my interest in this? Well, it started with healthcare, 40 years. I've been in healthcare 40 years, and where I got involved in mental health is trying to support employees through the process when they had crisis. And I wanted to keep them as good employees because many of them are good employees. And to maneuver the different providers and programs, it's difficult. So I come at it from a whole different perspective than Doug and Craig and many of the members on BEP. But I just want to share with you some of the things that the vision of a transitional house begins with referrals and admissions and working the programs that to have that person successfully return to the community. So the referrals would come from two places, Avera, Behavioral Health, and Yankton Human Services Center. Remember, this is a pilot. We need to have a little focus. So they would come from those two agencies. The definition and defining and working process would be a memorandum of understanding with those two agencies. And then the East Central Behavioral Health Center will receive the referrals as a state-recognized licensed provider, and that's how that works across the state, is there's community health centers. Prior to admission to the transitional house, a case manager must be identified. So there has to be a case manager, and there must be a physician. Physician's orders must be received, financial means must be established, medication administration, depending on self-preservation, they need to be able to survive. And also if they have any history of violence, we'd like no history of violence. And then they have to be able to do their activities of daily living. East Central Behavioral Health, as case manager, would be responsible to work with the client and develop a care plan and monitor the progress of the care with the goal of re-entry into the community at the level of independence that the individual is appropriate. The discharge plan would include, but not limited to, engagement in other community services. These providers will work with the client to guide them through transitioning. And with memorandum of understanding between East Central Mental Health, Avera, and Yankton, they would be able to understand what we do not want to recreate what's already established. We need to use the providers that are here and the programs that are here. At the completion of the care plan, the discharge plan will be developed with the client will be guided by the case manager, and the client will move from the BEP house into a community, will be a new normal for her. So here are some just facts that I want you to think about. Memorandum of understanding with community providers is a key to the success of this program, and we need both funding and memorandums to be in place before we sign any lease. Referrals will be from Avera and Yankton. The referrals will be adult females. no history of documented violence. They will have a high likelihood of success in this type of environment as determined by the experts at Avera and Yankton. And the clients must agree to be part of the transitional program and understand that it's temporary housing, and they will have a roommate. They will sign a lease, and the rent that has been established by the Brookings area housing is 40% of their average income up to the fair market rent in Brookings, and 40% of their income would include utilities in this. The building we are proposing to lease is for this pilot includes utilities in the rent. There's no deposit required by the client. Direct deposit payments will be required and no longer stay than 12 months. And the case manager will lead the team if the eviction is required. BEP will work with providers and service groups in Brookings to build a collaboration relationship that helps to ensure the success of the client. There are many providers here, and there's many programs in Brookings, and Brookings is very generous. The city and county certainly know how to make things happen. I teach a class up at SDSU and called Family Policy. A gentleman much smarter than I am, Dr. Kidman, says there's 3 things that have to happen in American to make a policy or make a shift in society. And one is that the problem is recognized. The policy solutions are available. And then the other thing is that the political climate is supportive of that change. Well, those 3 things have been identified. The problem has been identified. We have the solutions. And the political climate around mental health across our nation is certainly more visible and more loud and more talked about now than ever before. And so Brookings is a leader, and Brookings can be recognized across the nation to how to develop a program, a stable, healthy, safe community where mental illness is transformed into mental health. I'm asking you as the commissioners of the Brookings community, county, to assist in the development of a transitional program that will continue and contribute to building mental health stability. So help us build the dream. And we hope to open in April of 2018. And now any questions that you have of us, we will try to address.
Question by Mr. Groman.
How many people at one time can be
6.
into 6 one time? And so how would you choose I mean, you're getting referrals, and what if you'd have more than 6 and different things like that? Is there a process of choosing that? Do you have a process in place of choosing an individual?
The referrals would come from Avera or Yankton, one or the other. They would know what the house, the structure of the house would contribute, and the personality or the culture of the program. So they're the experts that would refer. Once we're at 6, we're at 6 for the pilot program. Does that mean in the future that we couldn't have something different? But right now we want to stay small enough so that we can be successful enough and learn from mistakes. You know, you always learn from your mistakes. You never learn from your successes, really. So if you can keep it small, that's why we want to do 6, female, adult, you know, pretty structured.
Mr. Miller?
How long do you anticipate that they would spend in this transitional housing?
No longer than 12 months. It's a transitional. Some clients, our tenants, clients of the providers, may go through it in 3 months, but it may go 12 months, but they need to know that there's an end. And it's their responsibility, along with the case manager, to set up a program for that individual that will make them successfully transition back into their community. Now, it may be an apartment, it may be a house, it may be back to their family, it may be not even in Brookings, but I would love to see some of those of the people stay here and be a contributing factor into the community. Maybe some of them can work 40 hours a week. Maybe some can only work 10. Maybe some can't work at all, but they can contribute to the community through volunteerism or something like that. Each program would be individualized.
She's been in Yankton many months throughout her life at a great cost to everybody. Anna Vera at great cost to everybody. Why is she not here? Because there is nothing here. I had to, and I'm very fortunate, she is in Huron, which has a superb plan in place, and they work with many mentally ill patients, clients, whatever you wish to call it. But there was nowhere for my daughter to go. And so every time that she did come back to Brookings, she was always dropped through the holes. She would always get back into one problem after another. She needed help. And that's what we're trying to do. Okay, we know what's happened personally. There's no reason that we can't start something in Brookings to help these people, your friends, maybe your relatives in our community. Because if every community could do something like this in the state, you'd take a tremendous pressure off of Yankton and Avera, and you'd cut the cost tremendously.
Yeah, kind of in line with that as well. You know, this is a pilot, and this is the first step. If you remember that continuum that I put up there for housing, I mean, we have visions for mental health housing in Brookings that will extend into longer-term care, but we want to be very careful about that because of the cost implications of that and what that kind of means. But what really started BEP was it was out of the Brookings NAMI organization, and we had aging caregivers who were asking, what's going to happen to my son and daughter who's living at home when I die? And that's what created the housing initiative. And we can't really just jump into something like that without a lot more experience and a lot more knowledge and, quite honestly, a broader community support for something like that. So we're kind of beginning at the beginning, and we're wanting everyone to kind of go on this journey with us, and we're going to discover what it's going to take and what we think we can do and those things that we can't do. But we won't know until we kind of take a couple of first steps, and that's kind of what I view this thing to be.
You said you talked to the city or had your same presentation with the city and everything like that, and you looked at dollars, and so are you wanting everybody to try to help contribute, that type of thing? Are you looking for dollars? Are you looking for obviously an endorsement? It's an awesome once you're.
Well, obviously we're going to need the funding because we just don't have the resources, and we're the county isn't the only place we're coming with our handout, so to speak, and the same presentation is being replicated where we can, and we're just asking you to put that on your list, if you will. Do some prioritization and see where that fits in, and if there is a sense that this is a meaningful thing for the community and the county to embark on, please consider helping us in some funding. It can be the whole thing. We would love that, but we also recognize that that's probably not a reality. But wherever you can help would be kind of appreciated. We also have a Build a Dream campaign that we are going through our community of members and volunteers. We've also applied to the United Way. We're looking at Larson Foundation, Avera Foundation, all of those kind of things, because this level of fundraising for us is new to us as an organization as well. And so, I can't give you anything more. It would be great if you could give me a couple thousand a day and then we talk about it later. But that's just, I don't know what, I'm asking for the whole thing, and whatever you can give me would be just great. I just can't. In my mind, I people will poo-poo this quite a bit, but it is about the money, but it's not about the money. I mean, these are people living in our community. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our relatives, and we're exporting them out of community away from their families because we have no place to put them. My daughter is in Florida. Doug's is in Huron. The list within our organization, we got people going to Omaha because Boys Town offers things that we don't have. It just, I mean, the list just gets longer and longer and longer, and we have to start to step up, and that's kind of what I'm asking of the community.
You've kind of identified a residence that you're going to purchase, or do you own now, or?
You know, we as an organization almost don't view ourselves as ever buying anything. Okay. We're going to use the resources that are available in Brookings. We found a place in town. It's a former assisted living facility over by the current domestic abuse shelter. That baby, if we were going to lay something out, we couldn't have done it any better, because it's just absolutely perfect for what we're all about. But again, you know, for BEP, we don't care who does it, just so that somebody does it. And so we're going to we keep inventorying the community about what resources are available and how we can do this and be creative in doing that. And that's what this is.
Could you speak in the mic, please?
Oh, sure. One other thing I'd like to add just quickly is, like we said, we have given this horse and pony show, if you will, to other people. But everyone we've talked to has not said, what are you thinking of? This is crazy. We have support from people in Pierre. We have had 2 meetings with Avera personnel. We've had 2 meetings with Yankton personnel. We've had BEP personnel. We've had East Central. We've had people from Pierre that came to our meetings unexpectedly. So we're going all over, and we're getting great idea, do it. The question is, why can't we do it? There's no reason we can't. And everyone that we're talking to says this makes sense. And we feel that we can do it because we're getting credible people. This is their livelihood, and they're agreeing with us. I don't know what more we need to ask for, except assistance, if possible, from the city, the county, wherever we can get it. Nothing more. That's it.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
And if you have any questions, you can always just give me a call.
On the correspondence received. Can't do that. Okay. Okay, I look for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.